there. I am excited to give you my tempeh report. It has been about 30 hours since I started incubating my pinto bean tempeh, and it has a really nice kind of snowy sprinkling of mold around it now. So I want to first show you that, and then I'll kind of tell you my process. But I'm going to grab it. It is in my dehydrator, which is behind the camera, and I'm going to grab it and show you it. So at first I just had it on a cutting board in my dehydrator, and then the last couple hours it's been on the rack because I realized that the top was developing a lot more of the mold spores than the bottom was, so I wanted to kind of aerate it so that it could be in the middle of the dehydrator so that the air could be circulating underneath it. So I have it in a Ziploc bag, and they're pin pricks. I use this bamboo, why can't I think of the name of this? Skewer. I wanted to say spear, to poke holes in it. And I don't know how well this translates. I think you can kind of see the blanketing of the spores that are just kind of opening up all over. So what I've been doing is, whenever I think of it, I've been in and out in the garden, but it's really nice here. I've been coming in, I've often just been leaving this in the tempeh, my thermometer, because it's, you want to keep it between 85 and 91 degrees, and that's fine for it to just stay in there. So right now, it's slow to read. It's not a super fast one. It's still going up. It's at about 91, so it's at the higher. So I'm actually going to lower it in the dehydrator. It's a little bit hotter on the top, even though there is a fan. But I'm going to put that back in there, and then I'm going to come back and tell you about all the steps that I've had with this. A little lower. And I have it just kind of propped up at the bottom a little bit. So I have it set, I have an Excalibur dehydrator, and I have it set in between the 90 and 100. And it's a great dehydrator, it's a workhorse, but it also isn't super calibrated the temperature. So I I'd rather it be a little bit on the cooler side than too hot. So anyhow, what happened was I just want to go through all the steps for you, and I have them actually written down here for just helping me make it. I soaked my pinto beans for 24 hours, so you can use whatever beans you have on hand to do this, and that's kind of the point of these tutorials that I'm doing, is kind of give you some skills and some ideas, and this one we're learning together. But how you can make things just using what you have, because we're all hopefully not going to the store as often and limiting that contact with other people. Quick side note, I just placed an order with Milk Run for the first time. I've never used this service, and I'm excited about it. It's been recommended by a lot of people. It's a very hyper-local food service that delivers to your door. And they have all sorts of really good, all local, farm fresh produce and beans and eggs. And so I just ordered a pound of, actually I haven't placed it yet. I made another order, but I haven't solidified. I think I'm going to get a pound of cranberry beans to do another batch of tempeh with Barlotti cranberry beans, because they have a thin skin and a nice flavor, and they're really velvety, and I think that'll be good. So I did just have coffee, so I'm talking a little bit faster. I always have my afternoon cup of coffee. So I soaked my beans for 24 hours, And then late yesterday morning, I took them, I drained them, and then because of all of my directions and instructions that I've read about tempeh, I wanted to kind of hull the beans. So that's tricky if you don't have a huller. What I did was some of them just naturally, like the skins were kind of coming off the beans after soaking, so I just pulled them off. You want to have the beans, at this point, I wanted to have the beans and get the skin off. So I picked some off, and then I put some in a plastic bag and rolled them. They're still really hard because they haven't been cooked. And that split some of them, and then it was more easy to get the skins off. I told myself sort of, 20 minutes into it, you have an hour to complete this task. Because I very quickly realized if I was actually going to roll and hand pick the skins off of all these beans, it would take me hours. So I thought, I'll do what I can do in an hour, and then they're just going to go into the tempeh, and we'll see how it goes. The problem with that is I feel like maybe I ended up with and I just sort of did this with my hands with them, put them in water, agitated them, all sorts of techniques to try and get those skins off, which is more tough than you would think. And then I, my hour was up for that task. I done what I could, and then I was instructed by, Sandor and Wild Fermentation. That's the older edition, the newer edition, and then the company that I got the tempeh from, to boil for about an hour. So I boiled for about 30 minutes, and then I did a scoop, and I realized, oh wow, okay, these are really. Obviously, it's not any fault of these recipes. It's just that there's all different types of beans, and I'm not using soybeans, and soybeans would take longer. So they were ready, and so the ones that I had halved and taken the skin off of were kind of getting pulpy, like if you'd overcooked potato. They were kind of fissuring, and then the ones that still remained completely intact with their skins were fine. So I just quickly, I got to get these out of here. So I strained them. And then what you want to do is you want to dry your beans. So you can use a towel if they're all whole, but obviously mine were kind of, pulpy and kind of waterlogged. And so some of them. And so I just sort of spread them out on a sheet pan and let them kind of, the vapors come off and let them just dry naturally in the kitchen. It didn't take that long. So then when they were dry to the touch and still slightly warm, that's when I put them into a bowl, and then I got my, when I ordered my starter culture for tempeh, I got 4 packets, and each packet is good for 2 cups of beans, legumes, pulses, whatever you're using. So then I added one of these packets, good for 2 cups. And I added 2 tablespoons of my homemade plum wine vinegar. And I think Sandor says 1 tablespoon, they said 2. And I just thought, you need a sort of slightly acidic environment for this particular mold to be happy and to grow. So I just went on the 2 tablespoons. And then you just kind of, I stirred it all up together, not with my hands, I actually just used a spoon. And then I put it into my large storage size Ziploc, my, gallon sized Ziploc. And, I wanted it to be about 1.5 inches deep. And so that ended up being about, you just saw it, but about, 3/4 of the bag. Kind of got it all in there. And then I used this bamboo skewer. Every inch you want to poke a hole in it on both sides. Okay, so I did all of those things. Did I leave anything out? Oh, so when you are drying them, if you want to, be faster, you can use a blow dryer, put them into a towel, put them out in the sunshine. Like I said, I was doing so many different things, and it was just, I was A-okay with them just kind of drying off on their own. It didn't take too long. And then I started incubating them in my food dehydrator at 11 a.m. yesterday. So about midday today. So you want them to stay between 85 and 91 degrees this way that I'm doing it, for anywhere from 24, I'd say usually anywhere from 48 to 72 hours on up, depending on, the beans, all the conditions, elements, all the elements. So then, so the mold spores started to kind of show up midday today, and now they're just really kind of taken off. They're really happy, and it's just, the Goldilocks temperature. It's not getting too hot. As that fermentation and the mold spores really kind of take off, things start to get hotter. So I'm slowly turning down the dehydrator, propping open the door a little more, and then throughout this evening, as the mold really takes over, I might even, turn the dehydrator off. I'll have to keep, monitoring it and making sure that the temperature stays in that sweet spot. Doesn't get too hot and doesn't get too cold. And the thing about, now I have a new, the next time I make them, which is tomorrow, so I took another couple cups of pinto beans and I'm soaking them. I'm not going to hull them this next batch. I'm going to change one thing. So I think when you're doing kitchen experiments like this, it's important to, if you have, 5 different ideas. Oh, I think I should use a different vinegar. Oh, I think I should incubate it a little bit cooler temperature. Oh, maybe I'll use a cooler and a heating pad. Oh, different beans, da-da-da-da-da. You need to change one thing. So I'm going to change one thing, which is I am not going to hull them, because I read a few different reports online and watched some tutorials, and a lot of people who make delicious looking and sounding tempeh don't do that. They skip that step because they don't have a huller. And one woman went so far as to say that, and this really makes sense to me and I feel it, is that when you keep the skin on for these small batches of tempeh, you get a more velvety interior of the bean, because it's, it's its own private little, steam capsule that keeps all that good flavor in there. So anyhow, when I have all of this sort of mashed and blown out and kind of wet, pulpy bean, and then I also have the whole beans, but as you maybe could see, it's kind of a little more compact than you want for tempeh, because those are kind of filling in the gaps, whereas you generally want to have these whole beans, pulses, legumes that are in there that have area around them for that mold to kind of get into the tempeh and sort of blanket it and create a web and keep it and make it this block. So I have a good coating of mold on the outside now, and I've kept continuously making those holes with this skewer and kind of poking them open a little bit, so that in the hopes that that mold that's in there, because it's, I tossed the beans with it, the whole shebang has that rhizopolis, the mold in it. Hopefully, by doing that, I'm sort of creating these pathways for it to get in there. But I'm gonna start a new batch, tomorrow morning, and then I can kind of compare and contrast between the two. But it smells really good in here. It's so fun. I'm really looking forward to having homemade tempeh, and I'm also looking forward to tempeh Rubins with my tasty sauerkraut and breads that I've been getting from people who've been making delicious breads, and kind of doing trades that way. I think that I've talked about most of the kind of important stuff in terms of the experience, but so it's 14 minutes, so I'll go a little bit longer, just a couple more minutes, but this is just a fun thing. So I've also done some YouTube tutorials on, I think I did one on nettles and nettling, and in that one I have, kind of instructions on making tea and nettle pesto. So today I decided to really low and slow bake nettle leaves. So I baked them at, so I tossed them in a little bit of, I just spritzed, I have a sprayer of olive oil, reusable pump sprayer. spritzed a bunch of leaves with that, sprinkled a little salt, and I put them onto 2 baking sheets, and then I baked them for 25 minutes at 250. And I tossed them a few times throughout, just if there were hot pockets and kind of wetter leaves, plumpies. And then they were perfectly crisp, and I kind of crunched them up with my hands. And then I made a furikake, Japanese kind of rice seasoning. You use it for all different things. And I mixed them with toasted sesame, bonito flakes, Tempeh, tangerine or orange peel. What else did I put in it? Salt, sugar, bonito flakes. Shiitakes, so dried shiitakes. I took the dried shiitakes and the tangerine peel, and I put them in the coffee grinder, and I ground them into a powder, and I put everything else into a food processor, kind of just pulsed it a little bit, because you want some bite still to it. And it's really, really good. Like, super delicious. So I'm really glad to have another thing to do with nettles. So if any of you have watched that nettle tutorial, or if you just love nettling and doing fun things with them, there's another thing that you can do. And then I just had some extra dried nettles that I'll use in various ways. But yeah, I think I'll do one more of these for the tempeh, probably tomorrow when it's completely, I think it'll probably be done at some point tomorrow. Kind of blanket it in the mold, and then I'll have the new batch starting. And yeah, I hope that you are doing well, and I hope that this might be something that you'll try, and if you do, please leave a comment or get in touch with me, and if you have any questions, I might be able to answer them. The fun thing about doing this tempeh tutorial is I'm learning as I go, so yeah, who knows, I think the next thing will be, doing the pintos, then I'll be doing the tempeh out of the cranberry beans, and who knows what's next. All right, love to you, love to your loved ones, and I'll see you soon. Bye.